from the res life, big lessons for the world, dreaming big.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Willie Cheez Education Channel. My name is Delmar, and I love to write stories and read them back to you, inspiring you to learn through the power of storytelling. Through the adventures of Willie Cheez, we explore personal development, Navajo culture, ceremonies, native histories, and life lessons that will help you grow and connect with both tradition and modern life. And I'm excited to share with you on a new story called Willie Cheez Goes to Gallup, a Fun Adventure. It was the first of the month, and Willie Cheez's grandma was all ready to head to Gallup. "Willie," she called, "get the truck. We're going to Gallup. Payday." Willie jumped up, grinning from ear to ear. The first of the month meant a big trip. Snacks, stories, and all the strange and fun things they'd see on the way from Chinle to Gallup. "Coming, Grandma," Willie shouted, grabbing his favorite hat. "Let's roll." The road to Gallup. The truck rattled down the dusty road, bouncing over every bump, which seemed to make Grandma laugh more each time. "Hang on, Willie," she cackled, clutching her purse like it was full of gold. Willie was all eyes, taking in the scenes outside. They passed the cliffs, the red dirt stretching far and wide, sheep grazing, and of course the wild horses just hanging out like they owned the place. As they drove, Willie thought about all the cool stuff they'd see in Gallup. "Do you think the flea market will have fry bread this time?" he asked, his stomach rumbling just thinking about it. "Only one way to find out," Grandma replied, squinting at the road like it might try to trick her. She was a fierce driver, gripping the wheel with her eyes fixed on the horizon. Unexpected delays. Not 10 minutes later, they saw a bunch of sheep blocking the road. "Oh, not again," Willie groaned, laughing. This happened every time they went anywhere. The sheep just wandered around like they had all the time in the world. Grandma honked the horn, but the sheep barely glanced her way. "Sheep are tougher than they look," she muttered, inching forward. Willie watched as one especially bold sheep stared back at them as if to say, "Where do you think you're going?" Finally, the sheep decided to move, and they were off again. Pit stop, trading post. Next stop was the trading post to pick up supplies and gas. Grandma wanted coffee, so she handed Willie a few dollars and sent him in. Inside, Willie eyed the snacks. Chips, soda, candy bars. It was a gold mine. He picked out a few things and got Grandma's coffee, making his way back to the truck. "Did you spend all the money on candy?" Grandma asked with a suspicious glance. "Maybe," Willie admitted with a grin, trying to hide a chocolate bar behind his back. Grandma just shook her head, laughing as they pulled back onto the road. The arrival. Gallup, at last. Finally, they saw Gallup ahead. The traffic, the crowds, and the mix of people from all around made it feel like a big city. Willie's eyes lit up. "We made it," he cheered. They parked by the flea market, and Willie leapt out, already looking for the fry bread stand. The smell hit him first, and his stomach rumbled louder than Grandma's truck. They wandered through the flea market, greeting friends and browsing the booths filled with jewelry, blankets, and pottery. Grandma stopped every so often to chat with someone she knew, leaving Willie to explore. He saw a booth with leather belts, another with silver rings, and even one with old vinyl records. Everything was a treasure waiting to be discovered. Then he saw it, the fry bread stand. He ran over, dug into his pocket, and handed over his crumpled bills. With his fry bread in hand, he munched happily, the warm bread and honey melting in his mouth. The pawn shop hunt. After their market stroll, Grandma announced it was time to hit the pawn shops. She loved looking at all the old turquoise jewelry and trading stories with the shop owners. Willie tagged along, pretending to be interested, but really keeping an eye out for any strange or funny trinkets. In one shop, he found an old guitar with a missing string, a collection of tiny cowboy boots, and a dusty ceramic owl that stared at him a little too hard. "Grandma, look," he whispered, pointing to a rusted old spittoon. Do you think anyone would actually buy that? Grandma just chuckled. Some things you just don't question, Willie. Heading home. As they headed back to Chinley, Grandma looked out at the passing scenery, a soft smile on her face. After a moment of silence, she sighed, and Willie knew one of her stories was about to begin. She turned to him, her eyes gleaming with the warmth of old memories. You know, Willie, she began, back when I was your age, we didn't have trucks or cars to get to Gallup. No, sir. We'd pile into a big old wagon, hitch up a couple of horses, and set off bright and early, well before sunrise. The trip took hours, and let me tell you, it was an adventure all on its own. Willie's eyes widened, trying to picture it. How'd you get everything to fit in one wagon, Grandma? Oh, we packed it like we were moving the whole world. Blankets, baskets, food for the road. Always fry bread, dried meat, and even little bits of sweets if we were lucky. And the elders, they'd sit up front, while we kids squeezed in the back, holding tight onto each other and hoping we wouldn't bounce right out. Willie chuckled, imagining his grandmother, young and fearless, bouncing down the bumpy road in an old wooden wagon. Grandma grinned, leaning in as she got to the good part. But here's the thing, Willie. Those rides, they were something else. As we went along, we'd pass other families, all heading to Gallup the same way. Every wagon packed with kids and food and a few stubborn chickens that always tried to escape. We'd wave and shout, trying to make our voices heard over the clatter of the wagon wheels on the rocky path. And the horses, they knew where they were going, almost like they had made the trip 100 times. What was it like when you finally got there? Willie asked, fully wrapped up in her story. Oh, Gallup was a sight to see, even then, Grandma replied, eyes twinkling. We'd roll into town dusty as could be, and the first stop was always the trading post. It was like stepping into a whole new world. The smells, Willie. You'd smell fresh bread baking, the rich leather of saddles, and all those bundles of herbs and spices hanging from the ceiling. I'd just stand there, breathing it all in, while my father traded pelts and blankets for the things we needed. And the flea market? Willie asked eagerly, picturing his grandma wandering among the stalls like he had just done. Oh yes, the flea market, Grandma said, nodding. Back then, it wasn't as big as today, but it was bustling, that's for sure. We'd see silversmiths hammering out bracelets, weavers with their looms, and all kinds of folks selling dried corn, squash, and even pottery fresh from the kiln. And there was one old man, named So, who had a little booth where he sold handmade flutes. Every year he'd play the same tune, something soft and haunting that made you stop in your tracks and listen. I still remember it. She hummed a few notes, her voice gentle and a little shaky, and Willie closed his eyes, trying to imagine the sounds and smells she described. It felt like he was right there with her in that dusty old market. And sometimes, when the day was nearly over, we'd find a good spot on the hill and watch the sun setting over Gallup, Grandma continued. My mother would pull out a blanket and we'd sit together, sharing stories, laughing, and watching the stars come out one by one. You know, it felt like we were part of something bigger, just a little family under the vast sky, watching over our small corner of the world. Grandma's voice softened. That's what I remember most, Willie. Not just the markets or the trading, but the way we all came together. We'd share stories, help each other out, and just be together. Those trips to Gallup weren't just about getting what we needed. They were about seeing friends, sharing moments, and feeling proud of who we were and where we came from. Willie nodded, his heart warm with the magic of his grandmother's story. He realized that every trip to Gallup, even in a bumpy wagon, had been a celebration of family, tradition, and resilience. And as he looked at his grandma, he felt grateful for the chance to carry those stories forward, knowing he was a part of something much bigger than himself. As the truck rattled back down the road, Willie thought about everything they'd seen. Gallup wasn't just a place, it was an adventure, a little piece of the world where stories were found around every corner. And as they bounced over another bump in the road, Willie grinned, already looking forward to their next trip. And that's today's story from the world of Willie Cheez. I hope it sparked some new thoughts, inspired growth, or brought you closer to understanding our shared journey. Remember, every story carries a lesson, and it's up to us to live it out. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and always honor where you come from. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.
From the res life, big lessons for the world, dreaming big.